Ahsoka is a collaborative work of fiction. Disney Lucasfilm creates random cool-looking scenes and lets people decide what they mean in their own minds. Here, I made you this cool-looking scene.
I want to put some dirt in your eye.
Now go on the internet and tell everyone what you think it means. This is smart because if Star Wars has no story, then there's nothing to complain about. Now you can enjoy the show, I don't care, we're not a dyad, but throwing in objective qualifiers like masterpiece, peak Star Wars, fantastic storytelling, act of splendor, pure art, soulfully great, is a bit much. We would have to invent new words to describe the original trilogy. I like to think that the bar for a story should be set slightly above zero. Not a single movie in the sequel trilogy is well written, but the solution is to make better stories, not remove them. Ask yourself why you're still a fan of Star Wars today and not of the Teletubbies. It's because there's more to Star Wars than pew-pews and bzzz, but not in Ahsoka. Hardly anything is explained, the characters are shallow, and the stakes are poorly defined. Even the fandom has to use its extensive knowledge of the universe to make sense of what is happening. There's a difference between theorizing and writing the whole story for free. What is explained, maybe too much, is the plot. The good guys have to find the map to stop the bad guy from coming back. Not very original, but sure. We can guess who is related to who. The show doesn't explain everything like we're idiots. Cool. The problem is that the characters are extremely shallow and it's impossible to relate to them because the writers don't tell us anything. For people who haven't seen Rebels, watching Ahsoka is like attending a history class where the teacher tells you facts about people you never met and events you never witnessed. You understand them, but you don't feel invested in the world and emotionally connected to the characters. And for people who have seen Rebels, it's not really exciting to watch because the characters have been stripped of their personalities. Hera's job is to follow Ahsoka from place to place and remind everyone that she's a general.
I'm a general.
I could make this a more formal inspection if you'd like.
Were you ever in the war, Senator?
Well, when you're a general...
Wow, what a great and fascinating character. I'm totally invested and not bored at all. The rhythm makes it very difficult to get interested in the characters. I don't know if it's my computer, but the NPCs keep freezing in the middle of a conversation.
I'm curious. What makes someone ready?
You just know. So do they.
Why? This is insane. Pauses should be used to say something cool or to convey an emotion, not in random bits of dialogue. And that's not even counting all the times when absolutely nothing happens. You can put all this in the trash. We don't need 50 establishing shots. Here is everything we know about the characters in 6 episodes. Yes, the show is not over yet, but that's irrelevant. We should be invested in the characters before the last episode. Hera's entire personality is to be a general. She has a constant smirk on her face and she is babysitting Ahsoka and Sabine, who are acting like an old couple. Of course, after 6 episodes, we still don't know what happened between them. At this point it's not intriguing, it's annoying. She also babysits her son for some reason. It seems that the military of the New Republic is one giant daycare center, which explains why it sucks so much in the sequels. Elsbeth is not a character, she's a plot device. She spent the first 5 episodes looking for Thrawn, a guy we know nothing about. At this point it's not intriguing, it's annoying. Baylan looks interesting, but we're only given breadcrumbs every episode to keep the mystery going as long as possible. At this point it's not intriguing, it's annoying. Shin doesn't like witches and she has a dick measuring contest with Elsbeth. We don't know who she is or what she wants, she's just following Baylan, a guy we don't know anything about either. At this point it's not intriguing, it's annoying. The big payoff between Shin and Baylan in episode 7 is everything wrong with the show.
Your ambition drives you in one direction. My path lies in another.
I don't know if it's humanly possible to say less with so many words. The director said I have to turn left and you have to turn right. But before we part ways, let me give you one last lesson. Don't die too fast. Okay, bye bye now. Stay safe. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a common theme here. It's great to have some mysteries in the show, and I don't expect everything to be revealed in the first 6 episodes, but come on! How long are they going to drag out all these intrigues that are not that exciting? This is just like Rings of Power. Who is a stranger? Find out in the last episode who is Halbrand. Find out in the last episode who are the 3 weirdos. Find out in the last episode, oh my god, I don't care about your shitty mystery boxes. Tell us in episode 2 and move on. Nothing happens in these shows because they just want big reveals. Chopper has nothing to work with and this guy is here again. I'm now convinced that there is a bet at Disney Lucasfilm to see how many times they can use the same random character. Apparently, there's only 10 people working for the New Republic in the entire galaxy. Meanwhile, Sabine is trying to blow up a hospital. She does a one-woman show to tell us how funny and relatable she actually is behind all her blandness. We're told she's very smart, but it's never properly conveyed. She's the only one who can open the map, but it's just a stupid Rubik's Cube. That doesn't make you smart, it makes everyone else stupid. The scene where she cuts her hair is a drag. We don't know what it means until after the fact. She cut her hair because...
It's more me.
Wow. First of all, you need to explain that before we have to sit through a minute-long scene if you want us to feel the weight of the scene, and secondly, that is not an explanation, that is nothing. This is more you. Great, but who the hell are you, and why are you letting your hair define you? Most of her personality revolves around finding Ezra.
You promised me I would see Ezra again.
Where's Ezra?
Where is Ezra? Where is he?
Let's play a little game. I'm going to tell you everything we learned about Sabine and Ezra's relationship over the course of 6 episodes, and then I'm going to compare it to what we learned about Zoro and Quina's relationship in a single episode, and you tell me which one you care about the most. In Ahsoka, Sabine has a nightmare about the day Ezra disappeared, and we hear the most generic line possible that tells us absolutely nothing about their relationship.
Remember, the Force will be with you always.
Wow, I've never heard that before. It really shows how special and unique their relationship is. We see a recording of Ezra, but the scene is only there to set up the relationship.
We're not really family, but you're like a sister to me.
2 episodes later, she gives a random fact about the day he disappeared.
Haven't seen those creatures since the day Ezra disappeared.
And that's it. Sabine tells us every 10 minutes how she feels about him, but we never see why he's so important to her. The actress can't show any emotion because she has nothing to work with.
Ezra.
Wow, I'm in tears. In One Piece we are not told about Zoro and Quina's relationship, we get to experience it through a flashback. We see them together and the actors are given the opportunity to show real emotions. Throughout the scene we learn why Zoro fights and why he uses that weapon. This is no ordinary sword, this is the Wado Ichimonji and it once belonged to Quina. She poured all her dreams and ambitions into the blade, and when Zoro received it, he inherited her spirit and will. With this katana, Zoro will fulfill both their dreams and the promise they made to each other. So which relationship is more compelling? The one we know nothing about with the boring character, or the one with the cool sword? The introduction of Sabine is terrible. A 3-minute scene of her speeding on a highway that goes nowhere, by the way, where she says a cool one-liner to show how cool she is while cool music plays in the background.
Get lost!
I'm not sure, but I think the writers are trying to tell us that she's cool. They don't need a 3-minute scene to tell us that. In fact, they don't need a scene at all. If she is really cool, the audience will figure it out for themselves. This was a complete waste of time. And Ahsoka's introduction scene is exactly the same. This scene goes on for more than 5 minutes and nothing of value happens. She's in a well-maintained room with immaculate walls that present no immediate danger. She's looking for a ball for some unknown reason, and she doesn't speak or show any emotion. This scene lacks tension, atmosphere, character work, and a clear purpose. This is the exact opposite of the opening sequence in Raiders of the Lost Ark. There is tension because there is immediate danger. The temple has a spooky atmosphere and is filled with spiders, cobwebs, and skeletons. We learn that Indy is brave, athletic, smart but not perfect, and the reason he's here is pretty obvious. One scene is fun and achieves substantial goals, while the other is boring and pointless. Without good character work, you can't have powerful moments. The characters in Ahsoka are so shallow that no amount of plot can make the viewer feel the weight of the story. And the fact that the big threat of the show is poorly established doesn't help. Thrawn is the big threat we should all be afraid of right now. This is his epic comeback, except 92% of the audience hasn't seen Rebels, so most people don't know why it's serious. The writers have to build anticipation around the character for those who haven't seen Rebels, but also for those who have. Otherwise, Rebels fans won't be excited to see him in this story, they'll just be excited at the idea of seeing him.
I miss the idea of it.
This is every single line from episode 1 to 5 that hints at the threat.
The location of the last missing Imperial Grand Admiral. Thrawn.
If Thrawn survived, does that mean Ezra?
This is about Ezra, not Thrawn.
What happens when we find Thrawn?
For some, war.
Wow, war in Star Wars. That's crazy.
If we can't make the journey to find Ezra, then no one should.
So preventing Thrawn's return is more important than saving Ezra. Okay, that's interesting. It's just too bad we didn't see Ezra, so we don't fully appreciate how much they're willing to sacrifice to protect the galaxy.
I'm not starting a war, but Thrawn will.
Yeah, again, that doesn't mean much. How is he more dangerous than this guy? None of these lines are exciting, but there's one scene I didn't mention. A briefing between 5 senators and a general. This should be the perfect moment to introduce the threat and set the stakes. But no, instead of seizing this opportunity, the writers turn the scene into a confusing mess. Hera starts the conversation by saying that she has reasons to believe that the bad guys are looking for Thrawn. Unfortunately, the senators laugh in her face and the conversation devolves into a petty argument about who has bigger balls. The writing is fine, it shows how stupid the New Republic is, but it has nothing to do with Thrawn. By some miracle, they start talking about him again. Hera says he's not a typical officer and she gives an argument to support her claim. She says,
I know because I fought against him.
Okay, that doesn't mean anything. What else do you have?
He killed friends, people who were like family to me.
A bad guy who kills innocent people. I am shocked. Can you tell us what is so atypical about this Imperial officer? Nope, she starts talking about her life instead.
I've spent most of my life fighting a war, and that's why I'm trying to convince you to help me prevent another one.
That's cool, but that's not an argument. I mean, I haven't spent most of my life fighting a war, but I can safely tell you that I don't want one either. After that, they mention Ezra and the conversation ends. So we talked about Ezra and how much he means to her, we saw how stupid the New Republic is, and she told us about her life as a badass general. We learned absolutely nothing about Thrawn. This was your one chance to set up the stakes, but the conversation went off on completely different topics. Let's compare this scene to a good one in another movie. Yes, I never use other Star Wars content as an example because Disney Star Wars is already ripping off Star Wars, so I'm tired of Star Wars comparisons.
You got old.
You look old.
Had to happen sometime, Rex.
Well, that happens.
Let's talk about Fellowship instead. This is a scene where Gandalf and Frodo discuss the ring. In a vacuum, this scene can be broken down into 3 parts. The hook. Is it the One Ring? The exposition. What is the One Ring and what does it mean to the world? The climax. What does it mean to the protagonist? The hook is designed to grab the viewer's attention. It's a mix of music, lighting, acting, and intrigue that comes together to build tension. The director tells us to pay attention because it's important. This is where the characters and the audience discover that the ring is indeed the One Ring. But what does it mean? Well, now that we're listening, it's time to change the setting to relieve some of the pressure and dump some exposition on us. This is information we got at the beginning, but it is recontextualized. It's not about epic battles or the past, it's about Frodo and the future. It's not about a war the viewer missed, but a war the viewer is invited to take part in. There's not much said about Sauron because it's not relevant at this point, and there's no reason to overwhelm the viewer with too much detail. What's important here is to convey the idea that he's a serious threat.
His orcs are multiplied. His fortress of Barad-dûr is rebuilt in the land of Mordor.
Gandalf gives a series of facts supported by the visuals seen earlier in the hook. The scene is very simple but essential. People sitting down, having a meaningful exchange conveyed through great acting, music, and visuals. We know about the ring, we know about the villain's resources, and now we know about the stakes. But there's one crucial element missing to sell the scene, and that comes in the last part. We've been told about the world and the Great War to come, but it's pretty vague and doesn't feel intimate or urgent enough. How does it affect Frodo on a personal level right now? And that's where the tension that's been slowly building since the hook reaches its climax, also known as the oh shit moment. We've been told that Sauron is looking for the ring and that he's a serious threat. Now we learn that he knows Frodo has it.
No one knows it's here, do they? Do they, Gandalf?
This shocking revelation hits Frodo and the audience hard.
But that would lead them here. Take it, Gandalf.
Now everyone in and out of the story is extremely invested because the whole sequence has informed the protagonist and the audience of what is going on and what needs to be done. And that's what a powerful scene looks like. Nothing crazy happened, it's just people talking about a silly ring, and yet it works. This scene is about Sauron. This scene is about Ezra, Hera, Thrawn, and the New Republic. The character gets emotional talking about the ring. The character gets emotional talking about Ezra. The tension is between Frodo, Gandalf, and the ring. The tension is between Hera and the senators. The threat is clearly defined. The threat is uncertain and Thrawn's resources are unclear. Ahsoka got rid of the table scene. The hook is there, but the exposition is unfocused, the stakes are poorly defined, and the tone is all over the place. You understand that it's important, but you can't quite grasp what it means and how it relates to the character. The constant tonal shifts, the long pauses, and the unsatisfying conclusion at the end of the conversation make the scene dull and forgettable. This scene in episode 7 is pretty much the same. There's one line about Thrawn and that's it. There's two main reasons why this scene fails to achieve its purpose. Disney Lucasfilm refuses to have dialogue. Star Wars is not supposed to be as dialogue heavy as House of the Dragon, but it still needs people talking for more than 30 seconds at a time. And by talking, I mean real conversations with real people, not NPCs with voice lines. The characters in the prequels were NPCs, but at least they talked faster and longer. The other reason is that Disney Lucasfilm builds shows around engagement metrics. Nothing happens for 3 episodes and people start to lose interest, then something cool happens and everyone gets back on board and it's the greatest show ever, and then nothing happens again until the epic finale. Because of that kind of storytelling, they can't show Thrawn at the beginning. They have to save him for later when the retention rate starts to drop. These two problems create a self-perpetuating loop of meaningless storytelling. If they want to save Thrawn for a cool reveal, then they need to write more dialogue about him to build tension. But they don't want to write dialogue. So we never hear anything about him until the show is almost over. When we finally see him in episode 6, he's not impressive. He's a military man with no magical abilities. He has less than 500 soldiers and a single spaceship. How are we supposed to take this guy seriously? We were not told why he was scary, and now we can see that he has no power or resources. He has a plan. Great, it's been 6 episodes now. Why didn't he tell us his plan 5 episodes ago to make it more compelling?
The entire time I knew Thanos, he only ever had one goal. To bring balance to the universe by wiping out half of all life. If he gets all 6 Infinity Stones, he can do it with the snap of his fingers like this.
Alright, thank you. Now I understand why this guy is scary. I'm invested for the next 2 hours. We're told he's a serious threat, but we're also shown that in the opening scene. Let's end the video with the best scene in all of Star Wars. The difference between me and the 100 interpretations I've seen is that I'm not going to pull facts or ideas out of my ass. Don't get me wrong, a lot of fan theories make sense in isolation, but none of them are supported by the events of the show or the current version of Ahsoka. In order for these interpretations to be possible, the show would have to characterize Ahsoka in a very different way. Being stoic doesn't mean she has a trauma or doesn't want to live. It's a made-up excuse to rationalize a flat performance. Rebels Ahsoka, Ahsoka the Grey, and Ahsoka the White all act the same way.
Not right now. On second thought, tell me one of those stories.
Wow, she sounds so much more alive than before. Wow, that is the least enthusiastic laugh I have ever heard. She smiles because she's happy to see Ezra, not because she changed.
They're the same picture.
In any case, there's absolutely no signs in this show that Ahsoka is struggling with anything. On the one hand, if you haven't seen Rebels, the scene comes out of nowhere. On the other, if you have, you're confused because the struggle shown here is either not justified by her past actions or has already been dealt with. Kenobi was shit, and this scene was shit, but at least it's clear that he has issues. The first problem with the scene is that we don't know where we are. We don't know if this is the world between worlds, a near-death experience, a dream, reality, or a vision sent by Palpatine. Is it all happening in her head? But if that's the case, how can she hold her breath for so long? The Force? What do you mean she's unconscious? So everyone made fun of Leia in space, but Ahsoka in the water is fine then? Is she in the world between worlds? But how did she get there? Can you explain what the world between worlds is? Depending on the answer, Anakin could be a Force ghost, a fragment of her imagination, a trick sent by Palpatine, or something else. So we don't know where we are, and we don't know who Anakin is. How are we supposed to make sense of the scene when the premise is so vague? The second problem is that we don't know what triggers the scene. Why now? How does it relate to what's happening at that moment in the story? Dumbledore told Harry to live or die at a key moment in the story. Galadriel appeared to Frodo at a key moment in the story. They don't show up randomly for no reason, and they were not in random, unknown places. King's Cross means something. A forest means something. The world between worlds means nothing. Was it real? Was it in their minds? Or was it magic? It doesn't matter. Enough was explained for the audience to draw their own conclusions. We don't need to be told everything, but we do need to be told something. Was the scene triggered by the villain because he said,
"Your legacy, like your master's, is one of death and destruction"?
But what does it mean? You know what would have been great here? Dialogue. Maybe Baylan could have explained his plan and how he wants to break the cycle of destruction, and that would have made her question her purpose and the futility of her mission. But no, dialogue is not allowed here. Again, how are we supposed to make sense of the scene when the premise is so vague? The third problem is that we don't know what the message is. Let's take a look at some of the interpretations I found online. She feels guilty about Anakin's fate.
Where were you when I needed you?
No!
You abandoned me! You failed me!
Guys, it's time to accept the fact that this scene in Rebels was bullshit. It came out of nowhere, and it was not substantiated enough. At best, it was a passing thought, a misguided sense of guilt triggered by a shocking revelation that was quickly resolved at the end of Rebels.
You can't save your master, and I can't save mine. I'm asking you to let go.
There's a single line about this in the show which might suggest some sort of guilt, but it's silly.
Before the end of the Clone Wars, I walked away from him. Just like I walked away from Sabine.
First of all, she never left him. She left the Jedi Order, which is completely different.
I know you believe in me, Anakin, but this isn't about you.
She literally saw him 10 minutes before the beginning of Episode 3.
You capture Maul, I'll take care of Grievous. With any luck, this will all be over soon.
Second, we have no idea what happened between her and Sabine, so we can't draw a meaningful parallel. Ahsoka has no reason to feel guilty about Anakin's fate or anyone else's. She can't even blame herself for ignoring Maul's warning.
You're all going to burn! We're all going to die! You don't know what you're doing!
Because she had no reason to trust him. The Clone Wars ended 29 years ago in the universe, and she has known who Vader is for 13 years. Can we move on? If that is the point of the scene, it means the writers are trying to rewrite a story that was resolved 10 years ago. Not only are they rehashing old characters, they are reusing their arcs as if the characters have regressed. That's exactly what the sequels did. She believes she's doing more harm than good. Baylan says,
"Your legacy, like your master's, is one of death and destruction."
But there's no evidence to support this. The cost of war was already addressed in Clone Wars.
But I failed.
It was a trap, Snips. It wasn't your fault.
I lost so many of my pilots.
Take heart, little one. That's the reality of command.
Who else did she kill? She tried to save the clones who turned against her during Order 66, which is the opposite of killing. She didn't kill anyone, and she left the only organization that could have tied her to death and destruction. The writers could have used Sabine's fake death as a trigger for Ahsoka's existential crisis, but she sees Sabine before falling. Either way, it wouldn't have worked because there's no setup. We didn't see Ahsoka lose her mind when Sabine almost died. In fact, Ahsoka taking a nap while she knows Sabine is all alone with Baylan makes me think she doesn't care about her. She's afraid of following the path of Anakin. She was trained by Anakin, not Vader. To think he would influence her to turn is silly. She never lost control, and her feelings never interfered with her ability to do the right thing. Again, she left the Jedi Order before Anakin went insane, and that was 30 years ago. Why would she randomly turn evil because of him after so many years? Anakin told her to be happy. Why is he telling her this now? How would it help? Why is Anakin telling her that after so many years? Wouldn't Rex be a much better person to tell her? She has already moved on. Why would she still be sad? What evidence do we have that she's sad, and what changed after that? If that is the point of the scene, bringing Hayden back for such a silly message is incredibly lame. There's many more theories, but we all have better things to do than listen to them all. Hopefully I have made my point. No one really knows what happened, and the simple fact that everyone has a theory proves that. There's a difference between leaving things up to interpretation and giving the viewer nothing. The writing in this scene is non-existent, and that's all there is to it. People can enjoy the colors and the cameos, but to call it a masterpiece or pick storytelling is ridiculous. There's nothing more going on in this scene than in the one I made. In an alternate universe where Kenobi was a good show, a similar sequence would have worked because there's a lot more things to say and things that haven't been said between the two of them. Ahsoka's journey with Anakin was over 10 years ago. Move on. In conclusion, the show is like this table. It looks cool, but when you start thinking about it, you realize that the table is also the floor that they sweated on during training, and it's disgusting. Regardless of Filoni's ability to write, he has been given an impossible task. It's very difficult to write a compelling story because we already know that these characters will soon be irrelevant and that the New Republic will be destroyed. People cared about Clone Wars because it tried to fix Anakin, and people wanted Anakin to be fixed because they liked Vader. But Ahsoka is a prequel to the very bad trilogy that cannot be fixed. I still see videos on YouTube every day about how Filoni is retconning the sequels. It's too pathetic to even make fun of. The sequel trilogy is not being erased. Wake up! Filoni is not saving anything, he's filling in the gap between episodes 6 and 7. If you want the sequels to be retconned, you need to stop supporting this show. Also, where is Luke? I mean Jake.